Hello everyone, this is Andrew. Welcome to Keen on America.
On July 4th, 2026, America will be 250 years old. An anniversary that will, no doubt, be greeted with a mixture of celebration, contemplation, and resignation. In Keen on America, Andrew talks not just about the American past and present, but also speculates on its future. What, Andrew asks, will be the 21st century fate of this now venerable American republic?
Hello everybody, it's Monday the 17th of March, 2025. United States is on the front page of all newspapers around the world in this Trump age. Yesterday we did a rather disturbing show with my old friend David Masciotra, a Salon writer who talked about Donald Trump's, what he calls his ravenous bigotry towards the trans community. He's written a very powerful piece in Salon about what he sees as the Democrats' shameful retreat on trans rights. And we talked about the way in which the Trump regime seems to be going after all sorts of minorities. The issue of race, of course, is central in how many people interpret the first couple of months of Trump's America, Trump 2.0. There was a piece that I saw this morning about the new presence of the Klan in Tennessee. And even the Los Angeles Times now is defending their owner's AI bot, which has defended the Klan. So I wonder if the Klan is more prominent now in Trump's America than it has been in the past. My guest today is an expert on the Ku Klux Klan. He is a prominent musician and writer, a man who of many talents and experiences, Daryl Davis, and he is the author of, firstly, The Klan Whisperer, which is just come out, which is about his own experience with the Klan. He has specialized in Klan relationships. He's also the author of Clandestine Relationships, and he's joining us from his home in Silver Spring, Maryland. Daryl, congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
What's your take on this first couple of months of Trump's America? Do you think that mainstreaming the Klan, as some people believe he's doing, is adding to all the tensions in America, or you think that might be a little exaggerated?
No, it's not exaggerated. And I think his first couple of months is a disaster. And I think they will get even more of a disaster if he's still with us by the end of his 4-year term.
Talk to me a little bit about how you got involved with the Klan. I mean, obviously, as a black man, you wouldn't necessarily be their natural constituency. How did you become involved and start writing about them? You're also you also had a TED talk that has had many millions of views. So you've done a lot of work on the Klan.
Yes. Well, it first started, you have to understand my background to see why I went down that pathway, that road. I'll be 67 years of age next week sometime. But as a child,
happy birthday in advance, Daryl.
Thank you. As a child, I was my parents were in the U.S. Foreign Service. So I grew up as an American embassy kid, traveling all over the world, starting at the age of 3. I did kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, all in different schools in different countries. And the in-between grades, I did back home here in the States. And when I was in school overseas, my schoolmates were from all over the world. Anybody who had an embassy where we were stationed, all of their kids went to the same school. So the person sitting to my right might have been a little girl from Czechoslovakia. The person sitting to my left might have been a little boy from Nigeria, behind me, a French kid, a Swedish kid, Danish kid, you name it. Anybody who had an embassy, all their kids went to the same school. So that was my first exposure to school, was overseas. I did kindergarten, like I said. So that became my baseline for what school was supposed to be. However, whenever I would return home at the end of my father's 2-year assignment, I would be in either all black schools or black and white schools.
Where was home, Daryl, when you were growing up?
Well, the United States, but
no, I know, but what part?
Well, Washington D.C. sometimes, Virginia, Massachusetts. Depending on, we could go anywhere in the country.
And how unusual was your father as a diplomat within the State Department?
He was very unusual. My father was one of the first black Secret Service agents in this country. He wanted to be an FBI agent, but the head of the FBI at the time was a fellow named J. Edgar Hoover, who was a racist, a chauvinist, and many other things. And he was having no blacks and no women. So my father applied at the Secret Service. Secret Service also had no blacks, but Harry Anslinger was the head of the Secret Service. And on the same day, he hired 5 black men. And my father was one of those 5. So he rose through the ranks and rose as high as they would let him go for a black man. It got to the point where he was training, new white agents that were getting promoted over him. And he was a senior, agent. He'd been there for a long time. So long story short, he joined the Foreign Service where he could rise even higher. And he did rise higher, but there was still a ceiling in the Foreign Service. So, but that's how we started traveling around the world. And my father spoke 9 languages fluently. He could read and write in 4 of them. So yes, he was somewhat unusual, especially for an American. Most Americans are monolingual and bilingual, if they learn anything, whereby many foreigners are bilingual and multilingual. So that was unusual for any American. But I'm grateful for all the travel, that he took my mom and myself on during the formative years of my life. I travel again now as a professional musician and also lecturer back around the world. And so when you combine both my childhood travels with my adulthood travels, I've been to 64 countries on 6 continents, and I have performed in all 50 states, which means that I have been exposed to a wide variety of people from all over the world, every color, every religion, culture, ideology, etc. And all of that exposure has helped shape who I've become, and certainly has helped form my views of other people. Now, I'll say this, all that travel does not make me a better human being than those who have traveled less than I have, but it gives me a better and broader sense of humanity than those people who have not been exposed to people outside of their own environment, shall we say. And that's what I try to share with people, especially white supremacists, KKK members, neo-Nazis, others, or just a common racist, to open their eyes to something that they don't know about, that they only presume. So that's how that journey started.
As I said, you're the author of the new book, The Klan Whisperer. You also wrote Clandestine Relationships that came out 20 years ago. One of the things you've done with your life is become associated with the KKK, have these, so to speak, clandestine relationships. Going back to your father, what did he tell you about the Klan? Where did he grow up? Did he have any direct experience of the Klan?
Oh yeah, he knew people there. He grew up in Virginia. He and my mom both grew up in Virginia. I was born in Chicago because when my father first joined the Secret Service, his first assignment was in Chicago, and that's where I was born. But Virginia, as you may know, was the seat of the Confederacy, and the Klan was born out of the Confederacy. So he would tell me stories about he knew so and so was in the Klan because he'd seen the Klan march and all this kind of thing, and he would recognize people's shoes because you couldn't see their faces. They're wearing masks. And these robes and stuff, but people have different clothes, but people have very few pairs of shoes, unless you're,
so they revealed themselves unknowingly through their shoes.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what gave you, what made you so intrigued that you formed these relationships with the Klan?
Well, I'd had a racist experience where I was attacked for no other reason than the color of my skin at the age of 10. And I formed a question in my mind at that time.
Where was that, Daryl?
That was in Massachusetts. I was participating in a parade, and I was the only Black participant in this parade. And there were some people, not everybody, but just a few people within the spectator crowd did not, like the idea that I was in this parade, and they began throwing bottles and soda pop cans and debris at me, and I did not understand it. I thought somebody, didn't like the people in the parade. It wasn't until the leaders came running over to me and quickly escorted me out of the danger that I realized I was the only person that was being targeted, because nobody else had the special protection. And later on that day, when I got back home, my mother and father, who were not attending the parade, were cleaning me up and putting Band-Aids on me and asking me, how did I trip and fall down and get all scraped up? I told them I did not fall down. I explained that people were throwing things. And so for the first time in my life, my mother and father sat me down and explained what racism was. And I had, at that point, I was 10 years old. At that point in my life, I had never even heard the word racism, because that word and that behavior did not exist in my world. And that's why it is so important to understand my background, where I was raised around everybody from around the world. Maybe we didn't look alike. We didn't speak the same language. Perhaps we didn't worship the same way. Some of us didn't worship at all, that kind of thing. But yet we all got along. We worked together. We played together. We had slumber parties together. There was no racism. And my 10-year-old brain, because of my past experience with people who looked just like the ones who were making these transgressions to me, my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea of what my parents were telling me, that this was happening to me because of the color of my skin. It made no sense.
Daryl, this experience you had was in Massachusetts. Some people argue that the issue of race and racism is in some ways worse in northern states like Massachusetts. You said you grew up in part in Chicago. To what extent, in your experience, in your relationships with Klan members, is the Klan a broad U.S. organization? Where was it founded? It seems to me that it was founded in a northern state. Is that correct?
No, that is incorrect. The Ku Klux Klan is indigenous to the United States. It is as American as baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet. The Klan was formed in 1865, on Christmas Eve, 1865, in Pulaski, Tennessee. And it got its charter the next year in 1866, around March of 1866. And so now, in terms of it
membership, though, I apologize for getting that one wrong. I'm going to lose all my northern friends now. I don't have any. Never had any in the first place. But
well, let me tell you,
in terms of its strength, though, it
hold on one
was
second.
A national organization, or is a national organization, isn't it?
Hold on one second. Let me back up to your previous statement. The Klan is everywhere, not just in the South. Okay, it's in the North too. In fact, most of your white supremacists in this country today are in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. So you got most of them in a northern state and in a southern state. So it started in the South and then spread out across the country. You got Klan out there in California, got Klan in New York.
Yeah, next time I go out, I'm going to have to look at people's shoes, because maybe that's the way we can find out. Although I don't suppose there are that many Klan members in San Francisco, although you never know. It's an odd place.
Well, think of it not so much as Klan members. There are plenty of Klan members, trust me. But think of it more as a Klan-like mentality, whether they're the Klan, whether they're neo-Nazis, the Patriot Front, the Vanguard, the One Percenters. There are any number of groups that maintain that white supremacist racist ideology. So you just use the Klan as a broad umbrella, because they all sprung from the Klan.
Oh, my understanding again of the Klan, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the intriguing things about it, particularly in the 20s, when it was extremely popular, was it wasn't just hostile to African Americans, but also to American Catholics. How central, in your view, in terms of the history of the Klan, is race?
Very central. Now, let me explain something to you. When the Klan was first formed in 1865, down in Pulaski, Tennessee, there were Protestants in the Klan, there were Catholics in the Klan, and there were Jews in the Klan. Now, how can that be? Because the Klan was a reflection of the Confederacy. There were Catholic slave owners, there were Jewish slave owners, and there were Protestant slave owners. The Civil War was fought over one thing and one thing only, and that was slavery. If people will try to deny that. If you go to school in the North, high school, or when you're learning American history, you go to school in the North, you are taught the Civil War was fought over slavery. That is correct. If you go to school in the South, you're taught no. The Civil War was fought over states' rights. Yes, that is correct. The state's right to own a slave. They just reframe it differently, but it's the same thing. All right. So as I pointed out, the white people who owned the slaves were made up of Jews, Catholics, and Protestants. All right. Now, when the Klan was formed, it spread, far and wide, and also what spread with it was violence, extreme violence, lynchings, church bombings, people being dragged behind pickup trucks, and all that kind of thing. The violence became so pervasive that the U.S. Congress got involved, and they passed a bill called the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. And this drove the Klan underground. It didn't make it go away completely, but it tamped down the violence and drove them underground. In 1915, a filmmaker named D.W. Griffith made a movie called Birth of a Nation, which glorified the Ku Klux Klan and caused a revival of it. So now the Klan was revived. It reached its highest membership in the 1920s, where they had 4 million members nationwide in this country. They also revised their constitution, the Klan Constitution. In the past, where they allowed Catholics and Jews, in this new Klan of the 1920s from 1915, they barred Jews and Catholics. Now, because the new rules in their constitution said that you must hold allegiance to the United States. A new rule also said you cannot reveal any Klan business to an alien. What is an alien? An alien is their definition of any non-member. You're alien to our organization. So Jews were barred for one reason. Another rule was you also had to believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God. So Jews were barred for that reason. Jews believed that Jesus Christ existed, but that he was just an ordinary man, not the Son of God. So they barred Jews for that reason. Catholics were barred for 2 reasons. One, you had to hold allegiance to the United States. If you're Catholic, you hold allegiance to the Pope. Where's the Pope? He's in the Vatican. Where's the Vatican? The Vatican's in Rome, Italy. So you're not holding allegiance to the U.S. You're holding allegiance to some foreign country, some foreign man. All right, that's number one. Second reason Catholics were barred is because the rule says you are not allowed to reveal any Klan business to an alien. Well, if you're a Catholic and you go out night riding, you lynch somebody, you murder somebody, you do something stupid to somebody, where do Catholics go? They go to confession, and they confess their sin to a priest. The priest is an alien. He's not in the Klan. So you are revealing Klan business to an alien. So they were barred for those 2 reasons. And so from 1915 on through about the mid-1970s, early to mid-1970s, no Jews and no Catholics. When membership kind of dwindled a little bit in the 70s, the Klan opened its door of membership a little bit wider. So today they accept Catholics, and today you do have Catholics in the Klan. No Jews in the Klan. There have been some self-hating Jews who have joined the Klan undercover, but then they were found out and, rooted out.
Well, maybe that can be your next book, although you.
Well, it's all in this book. So
yeah, well, maybe some Jew will write a book about how they joined the Klan. So why did you? I'm not saying, Daryl, you joined it, but why talk to some of these people? They are. I don't think you're going to defend them. They're very unpleasant people. They are overtly racist. They're guilty, or at least the organization is guilty of terrible crimes, particularly against African Americans. Why would you want to form any kind of relationship with these kind of people?
Okay. In all my travels, all around the world, meeting all kinds of people from all kinds of different backgrounds and cultures, different colors of skin, I've come to realize that no matter how similar or how different anybody that I've met is, that everybody I've met is a human being. And every human being in the world, whether they're right next door to me in Canada or right next door in Mexico or halfway around the globe in some other country on the far side of the earth that I've been to, I always conclude one thing. Everybody I have encountered is a human being. And every human being wants these 5 core values in their lives. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be respected. Everyone wants to be heard. We all want to be treated fairly and truthfully. And we all want the same things for our family as anybody else would want for their family. And if we find ourselves in an adversarial situation or in a culture or society in which we are uncomfortable or unfamiliar, I can guarantee you that your navigation of that situation, that culture, that society will be much more smooth, much more positive, and much more productive if you apply those 5 core values. The country that I'm from, this country right here, is my country. And it is very divisive. It is very separated. And we need to come together. The people who live, the only real people the only people that came here who are not immigrants are slaves. The only people who are indigenous to this country are Native American Indians. All right, everybody else is an immigrant. And so we need to learn how to get along. And I have seen people who look like the people who committed these transgressions against me, but these people are very nice to me. So I cannot paint a broad brush across a whole color of a group of people and saying, well, all white people are bad, or all black people are bad, or all Asian Americans are bad, whatever. You cannot do that. Now, the Klan does that. I don't do that because I know better. I've been exposed to better. And I try to bring what I have learned vicariously to those people who are ignorant. Now, well, I use ignorant not in a derogatory sense, but in a sense of being unaware, uneducated about it. You have people who are ignorant and you have people who are stupid. An ignorant person is someone who makes a bad choice or a wrong decision because he or she does not have the facts or proper information to make the right choice or correct decision. A stupid person is somebody who does have the facts and still makes the wrong decision. So there's a cure for ignorance. That cure is called exposure and education. And that's what I bring to these people. Unfortunately, there is no cure for stupidity. If you give somebody the facts and the proper information and they don't use it, there's nothing you can do. So it's not that I hate the people. I may hate the message that they purvey, that they put out there, but I don't hate the person because I know their message is a learned message. They were not born with that ideology. They acquired it from somewhere. So what can be learned can be unlearned. Now, as kids, you were told, I was told, everybody we know were told, a tiger does not change its stripes. A leopard does not change its spots. And we believe that. Why? Because it's true. So why would we think that a Klansman or Klanswoman would change their robe and
hood? Daryl, are you doing away with the notion of evil here? Are you suggesting that even the most violent and hateful member of the Klan or some other racist group who may not hate you personally, but certainly hates people of your skin, that they're all redeemable, reformable?
Many of them are. Yes, many of them are. There are
people, many, not all of them.
No, I mean,
David Duke. I
listen,
mean, we've done shows on
listen,
David Duke.
listen. There are people who don't wear robes and hoods, who don't have that ideology, who are not racist at all, but do evil things. I mean, people who take advantage of your money on Wall Street, like say a Bernie Madoff, who went to prison for embezzling money and things like that. He was not a racist. He certainly wasn't anti-Semitic. He was Jewish, but he was evil. He did bad things.
Well, you're equating Bernie Madoff, who was a crook, a thief.
You're trying to say that everybody who wears a robe and hood is evil. No, they're not inherently evil. They may have an evil ideology, but again, that is a learned behavior. If people could not change, then why would anybody waste their time trying to change them? People can change, and this is my point. The tiger and leopard cannot change their spots and their stripes because they were born with those spots and stripes. Nobody is born wearing a robe and a hood or a swastika. That is a learned behavior that you learn from somewhere. What can be learned can be unlearned. Have you ever done something in your life, you said, and then years later or whenever you said, you know what, I did the wrong thing. I need to change this. People can quit smoking. People can quit drinking. People can quit, doing stupid things or wrong things. Will everybody quit? No. There'll be people who will go to their grave being hateful, violent, racist, whatever. So, being a sociopath or what have you. But there are plenty of people who engage in that kind of behavior who can change if they are directed in the proper way. And that's what I bring to the table.
So, I have to admit, I'm not convinced by this, but you have a lot more experience than me. It doesn't really matter what I think. So tell me how you reached out.
Well,
to I've got in the Klan.
I've got the robes and hoods to prove it. I've got the robes and hoods to prove it. I have people like Scott Shepard and Jeffrey Scoop and many others.
Tell us about Scott Shepard,
who will come on my stage, put their own lives at risk. Because what you have to understand is this: when you join these groups, you take a blood oath to join this group, and that becomes your family above and beyond all family. It's like the mafia. Okay, that becomes your family. Not your biological brother and sister, etc. This is now your family. You take a blood oath. You do not betray your family. I've had people get out of that family and speak out against it and put their lives in danger. One person was murdered for it. Murdered, literally, out there in California, in Riverside, California. Okay, I can send you the name and article, and you can look it up. I got the guy out, and he got murdered because he spoke out against his own people, his family. So yes, people can change, and not all of them will. It takes a lot for them to leave and renounce, that kind of family. After
it does, but we had our Derek Black on the show.
I know Derek Black.
And of course, he changed. To borrow your language, he changed his spots. David Duke was his godfather. His father was.
I know all about Derek Black.
But talk about. Tell me a little bit about.
You just disproved your own point. I mean, you admit that Derek Black did change. Yes, he did.
Well, but
Derek Black is a great guy.
Hold on. If you want to use the example of Derek Black, he was the son of a prominent Klansman, the godfather of
Derek Black. Derek Black was the son of David Black, who was Donald Black, who was David Duke's right-hand guy.
Right. But let me just come back at you on that, because he's still Derek Black is still a young man. So he was brought up in that environment, but my sense is, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Derek Black, but he reacted against it. He didn't embrace it in the first place. He just chose. He just had the misfortune to be born into that family.
You're incorrect there. Derek Black was raised in that environment. Yes, David Duke was his godfather. Donald Black, David Duke's right-hand guy, was David Duke's right-hand guy was Derek Black's father. David Duke's first wife, Chloe Black, is now married to Donald Black. So David Duke's first wife is now Derek Black's stepmother. All right. So yes, it's all there, and Derek was being groomed to be the next David Duke. He had his own white supremacist radio show, talk show, all this kind of stuff. He was being groomed to be the next white supremacist leader in this country. Derek went away to college. And in college, he met some of his schoolmates who were Jewish. They invited him to a Shabbat dinner. He began getting curious and realizing that some of the things that he had learned and grown up learning about Jewish people were simply not true. Because now he's sitting there at dinner with these Jewish kids, and they don't fall into the category that he was told they fell into. He began questioning his own ideology and took it upon himself to research and make comparisons. And he realized he had been brainwashed. And Derek Black got out of that organization. He disowned it, and now he's been disowned by his parents and disowned by his godfather, David Duke. And Derek Black is a great guy. He's a friend of mine, and we've been on a show, on TV show together. He works hard to disassociate himself from that and convince other people not to go down that road.
Yeah, and my point, I'm not sure we necessarily disagree on this. He was on the show a couple of years ago, episode 2057. He wrote a book about his life as the son of a grand wizard and his rebellion against his family and the ideology. My point simply on Derek Black is that he's still a relatively young man. I think he's in his late 20s and perhaps early 30s. So,
and what's your point?
My point is that as he became an adult, he turned against it. I mean, you can't. It's hard to rebel against your parents when you're 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, true. But he did rebel. So he made a change. There are some people who never make the change, and there are plenty who have made the change because they realize their parents are wrong, and they don't want anything to do, with that ideology. And
so tell us a little bit. So I think we agree on it. Tell us about Scott Shepherd. It's interesting. Before we went live, we were chatting with my wife, who wrote a piece called "My Dinner with a Klansman." It's along the lines of, in some ways, of what you write about, Cassandra Knight, who sat down, as it happened, with Scott Shepherd on a civil rights tour of the South with her mother a few years ago. Tell us about Shepherd and your experience of him. You described him as a close friend and someone who perhaps epitomizes how people can be reformed.
Scott Shepherd is a wonderful man. He grew up in a family that was non-Klan. They had nothing to do with the Klan. Scott Shepherd was raised by a Black woman. All right. Scott Shepherd was a white guy. His family was white. In the South, as your wife can probably tell you, because she's from Mississippi, and she can tell you that there are a lot of white people had domestic Black people working as domestic servants in their homes, as nannies, as gardeners, as cooks, and different capacities. And so Scott Shepherd's mother was raised by a Black woman, a nanny. And when she grew up and got married, they kept her in the home, and she raised Scott Shepherd's mother's kids. She raised him and his siblings. All right. Scott was from Indianola, Mississippi, which is the birthplace of the White Citizens Council, which is the executive branch of the Klan. All right. And so he was always around that kind of stuff. He went to the movies. He had to sit in the white section, and Blacks had to sit in the Black section. He grew up with all that mentality. And but his father was a very bad and violent alcoholic. And so, that had an effect on Scott. Scott wanted to belong to something. He never really had a father figure. His father was very violent, very aggressive. Scott saw a lot of violence in his youth, and there was no man figure to stand up for him. His mother was the typical, woman of that era who did not stand up against, a male figure in the household. Her job was to have babies and stay in the kitchen and that kind of thing. That was the mentality back then. So Scott did not have a role model. He wanted to belong to anything where he could feel, I belong somewhere. If the Black Panther Party would have taken him, he would have joined that. He tried to join the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, but he wasn't Irish. He wanted to join the mafia. He's not Italian. The Ku Klux Klan offered him entree into their group, made him feel welcome, made him feel like he was somebody, he could belong. He joined the Klan. He got caught up in that ideology. Byron de la Beckwith, the Klansman who murdered civil rights leader Medgar Evers, was Scott's godfather. The people, the Klansmen who murdered the 3 civil rights workers, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Mickey Schwerner. The movie Mississippi Burning was made about that, the 3 civil rights workers. Scott knew those murderers. Scott knew the woman and her kids, the woman Carolyn Bryant, who just died not too long ago.
So yeah, and he's certainly an interesting character.
Yeah, but the point is, he saw the light. Okay,
how old was he when he saw the light?
Well, he was teeter-tottering. He got arrested for drunk driving, driving while intoxicated, and he got pulled over, and he was made to take the sobriety test or whatever, and they searched his car and they found a loaded weapon. So that escalated the charge. Now you're going around with a weapon and you don't have a permit for it, et cetera, et cetera. So he got put into the system. And when he went to court, he figured, the judge would just, he'll pay a fine for having the weapon in the car, and the judge will send him to some alcohol rehab, and he'll do his 30 days, and then he'll be done and go on about his racist life, continuing in the tradition that he wanted to be in. Scott tried to run for governor of Tennessee so he could promote his racist agenda. And when he got into that system, there were all kinds of people in the system. Black people, Hispanic people who had committed crimes. And he began wondering, as he met them, and they were having group therapy meetings and all this kind of stuff, and a lot of them had similar problems to him. He began questioning himself, because these were the very people that he blamed for causing the biggest problems in this country. But then he realized when he looked in the mirror, perhaps the biggest problem might be himself.
How old was he approximately when he went through this? In his 30s, 40s?
I want to say his maybe late 20s. And then he knew who I was. He'd seen me on TV, and he'd heard about me, and he thought I was just a crackpot, as he would tell you. He would even tell you that. He thought I was just off my rocker and wanted nothing to do with me. But then as he looked more and more at the people in the system, that had the same problems he did, and realized he may have some problems himself, Scott reached out to me, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to stay in the Klan or did I have something better to offer him, etc. And we began talking, and we talked for about a year through email, through phone calls, etc. And then I had a gig. I'm a musician, as I told you. I had a gig down in Mississippi for a week, not too far from Memphis, where he lived. And so we decided, we would get together. So I went down to Mississippi to do my gig. I didn't get a chance to get up there to where he was, but I came back a year later, and I got to meet Scott. And he was a wonderful guy, and he is totally gotten away from that ideology. He goes out of his way to help people who are still in that movement get out and have a new life. He goes out of his way to talk to young people, especially, to prevent them from going down that rabbit hole. And as a result, Scott gets a lot of threats on his life because he has betrayed his family.
So in our age of the mid-20s, Daryl, Trump 2.0, where there is more and more hatred in the air, what we talked earlier about, the hatred, particularly of the trans community, which seems very troubling. What is your experience with the Klan, with guys like Scott Shepherd, all these conversations that you wrote about in Clandestine Relationships, and now you write about in The Klan Whisperer? What do they teach us about getting beyond all the hatred in the America of the mid-20s?
What it teaches us is that people can change. People can have. Listen, I have learned, and I teach people how to do this in my new book, the Klan Whisperer. All right. What we learn is this: the greatest tool or weapon to dismantle conflict, racial conflict, or any kind of conflict, is the least expensive weapon that we have. It's free, yet it remains the most underused. It's called conversation. And, there was a time when this country and Great Britain were enemies. We even fought a war that was ended in 1776, and we celebrate our victory over Great Britain every year on the 4th of July. But from 1776 to now, right, we still continue to celebrate the 4th of July. But today, Britain is one of our best allies. All right, so people can change. Relationships can be rebuilt, even with your worst enemies, if you know how to do it.
Why, though, we got to end in a second, Daryl, but why should you be the one reaching out?
You're absolutely right.
The Scott Shepherds, hold on, the Scott Shepherds of the world, I mean, maybe reached out to you because you were well known, but they're not reaching out to guys like you.
Oh, some of them are. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. All right. Why should I should not have to do it. You're right. I should not have to do it. We should learn better growing up to treat people as we want to be treated. Unfortunately, in this country, that's not always the case. But I can tell you this: when you have been mistreated for 400 years poorly, and 400 years later, you're still being treated poorly for no other reason than the color of your skin, it's time you do something different. And so I've chosen to take a path that is, yes, it's different. I shouldn't have to teach people how to treat me. They should know already how to treat me with respect and dignity as I would treat them. The color of my skin has nothing to do with my character. All right. As Martin Luther King said, you judge them on the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
What would Daryl? Sorry, go on.
I should not have to teach them how to do that. But because they haven't learned in 400 years, maybe it's because somebody isn't teaching them or is teaching them the wrong thing. I have had success in bringing people out of that ideology. Go ahead.
Finally, Daryl, if you did have the opportunity to sit down with Donald Trump, he made infamous remarks after the Charlottesville murder about there being fine people on both sides, both on the KKK, neo-fascist side, and the rest of the world. He's made terrible comments about immigrants, about the trans community. What would you say to him? And would you give yourself a chance if you had a few days with Trump, maybe at Mar-a-Lago where you weren't being interrupted?
Absolutely.
You'd have a chance to reform the guy?
Absolutely. I played for him as a musician many, many years ago, long before he ever got into politics. I did not vote for him. I would never vote for him. I think he's a racist, a narcissist, very corrupt. And so, no, I have no respect for him as the leader of my country. I think he is a disgrace to this country. But yes, I would absolutely take the opportunity to sit down and speak with him. I would listen to him, and I would call him out on everything of which I have concern about. I would point out his flaws, but I would also help him to see them and reconsider. Now, whether he reconsiders or not would be entirely up to him. But yes, I could bring him to that point.
Well, I would love to see you sit down with him. I think he would certainly come out a better person. Daryl Davis, the author of The Klan Whisperer, an important new book. You had written Clandestine Relationships. Now the new book is The Klan Whisperer, a man who talks to what some people consider evil people like Scott Shepherd, other Klan leaders. Very, very interesting conversation. Daryl, I appreciate the work you're doing. You're doing what all of us should be doing, which is bringing people together and perhaps forgiving people, which I think is which takes a lot of strength and confidence. So thank you, Daryl. Continue all the good work. We'll get you back on the show.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Look forward to the next time. Can I step on the